Hey, hi, hello there, and welcome to Formula Amateur. And we are having another race rundown because we have just witnessed the Bahrain Grand Prix, the most abrasive track there is, that has never had its asphalt changed. And boy, oh boy, did we get some action. We finally woke up from Japan's sleeper, and now we have finally had an exciting race full of surprises, full of ups and downs. Let's get to it. Okay, so let's talk about FP1. So, from number 1, it was Norris, Gasly, Hamilton, Albon, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Doohan, Lawson, Tsunoda, Piastri, Bortoleto, Hadjar, Browning, Beganovic, Stroll, Drugovic, Hirakawa, Vesti, Iwasu, and Antonelli. So in this race there were a lot of rookies, mainly people who are driving in F2, as there is a clause in every company's paperwork that they have to at least have 2 FP1s dedicated to allowing drivers who are currently not on the F1 grid to get a ride in a F1 car, and they choose who they do that with. They typically are people who are within their driver's program. So Browning drove for Williams in space of Carlos Sainz, and then Beganovic drove in the Ferrari for Charles Leclerc. Drugovic drove in the Aston Martin for Alonso. Hirakawa drove in the Haas for Behrman. Vesti drove in the Mercedes for Russell, and Iwasu drove for the Red Bull team for Max Verstappen. And then everyone else is just who is already on the grid. And now we go back to the normal scheduled FPs, where we have Piastri, Norris, Russell, Leclerc, Antonelli, Hadjar, Verstappen, Hamilton, Behrman, Sainz, Albon, Lawson, Bortoleto, Doohan, Alonso, Ocon, Gasly, Tsunoda, Stroll, and Hulkenberg. And in this one, it was just everyone who we expect to see on the grid. There were no surprises, no crashes, nothing out of the ordinary, but there was a lot of degradation of the tyres because the tarmac there, the asphalt, is actually really rough because it hasn't been smoothed out or redone ever since the track opened in 2004. So the tyres were really having a day of it on a Friday, all throughout the whole weekend. It was crazy, it was warm, and it was just, it was a minimum 2-stop for everyone throughout the whole weekend. We go to FP3 now, and this was led once again by Piastri and Norris, and then Leclerc, Russell, Antonelli, Gasly, Hadjar, Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, Ocon, Doohan, Lawson, Alonso, Albon, Behrman, Stroll, Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, and Tsunoda. And it was just as uneventful as FP2 and FP1. But what I didn't mention in FP1 was that Albon and Luke Browning almost came into contact when one had to avoid the other because one was on a fast lap and another one was on the slow lap, and one interrupted the other, but it was hard to tell who was actually who. But it turns out that Albon got a penalty for that, and as a result they have to pay a fine for that. So that was a bit a scary moment for an FP2 driver, a fresh rookie to F2, to be put into a situation where they almost crashed into an F1 driver. But these things happen. Now, quali is where we start to see things going awry, and specifically what went awry was the fact that some did not have a good day of it, and we did have a crash, and there were some strange goings on where retroactively they took back points, and they took back places for people way after they were already knocked out of qualifying. So let's start from the top. So Piastri, Russell, Leclerc, Antonelli, Gasly, Norris, Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Doohan, Hadjar, Alonso, Ocon, Albon, Hulkenberg, Lawson, Bortoletto, Stroll and Behrman. What happened was that Albon originally was out-qualified in Q1 in the first session of qualifying, but then 40 minutes after he was already knocked out, the FIA retracted his position, because what happened was Hulkenberg was found to be over the track limits, meaning that he left where he was supposed to be on the track and went out off the white line, which is the perimeter where you need to stay within, and they retroactively took back his position. So he originally qualified 13th, but then got knocked down to 16th, and then Albon was put into 15th position there, and Ocon crashed out in what could only be a horrible loss of control. The tyres were really struggling for grip, and he crashed into a wall. He was perfectly fine, but as a result of that happening, there was a red flag to tidy up everything that was left over and, get rid of the car so the qualifying could carry on. But as the cleaning process was going on, a medical car came out to collect Ocon and make sure he's okay, and they took the medical car when they picked up Ocon back to the pit lane, but there was a little bit of an issue where the presumed resumption of qualifying after the red flag is lifted, that was when the Mercedes team let their drivers out, which followed with Hulkenberg getting out of the garage and then saying that Mercedes is being dodgy because they sort of made other people think that it's already time to get back on track when it isn't. And then it was all a kerfuffle where Mercedes was given a fine, and both drivers lost out on their position on track. So although Russell qualified second, he actually started third, and Leclerc started second, and Antonelli, although he qualified fourth, he started fifth, but that was only the rejigging that went on there. So quite a lot happened in the space of one qualifying session, and that did make the starting grid look slightly different from what was originally expected. The race was intense, as although it was in the night time, whereas all the FP1s, 2s, 3s were happening in the daylight, qualifying was a more representative of what would happen on the Sunday. It was still difficult for the drivers to cope because it was still quite warm. The tyres did not have any grip because of the whole abrasiveness of the track, and then overtakes did happen, and quite a surprising movement of the grid occurred. There was a safety car where they were cleaning up the remnants of Carlos Sainz's car after Yuki Tsunoda crashed into his side pod. And although they were able to carry on Sainz did not finish the race because his car just could not cope, so he had to stop his race halfway through, which was unfortunate because he did have a good qualifying, and unfortunately he wasn't able to put it through to race. But Verstappen and Tsunoda also had just a whole heap of issues with their pit stops being difficult because the light that allows you to be released from the pit stop was broken, so it wouldn't say that they are allowed to go, so they had to go off the hopes that the pit wall is telling them the right thing, that they are allowed to leave. And there was also issues where Verstappen's wheel wouldn't come off properly, and this is really weird coming from Red Bull because they have been winning pit stop awards for the last 7 years, and now to have them be so let down in just one race, it was quite astonishing. And who would have thought that we could actually see Verstappen in 20th, although briefly, but it was still quite shocking. So let's get into the results, shall we? So Piastri in first, Russell in second, Norris in third, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Gasly, Ocon, Tsunoda, Behrman, Antonelli, Albon, Hülkenberg, Hadjar, Doohan, Alonso, Lawson, Stroll, Bortoletto and Sainz with his DNF, although Lawson picked up 15 seconds of a penalty because of him colliding with other cars, not to the extremities where they were not drivable anymore, but it did affect people's effectiveness and performance. I believe one of them was Antonelli, which was why he finished in 11th. And then Hülkenberg was disqualified after the race because his plank wear was way too over the allowed limit, where he just could not. He basically is seen as taking an advantage as a result of his plank wear. So although he did finish 13th, he was disqualified. So everyone else below him, so Hadjar, Doohan, Alonso, Lawson, Stroll, Bortoletto, get to be pushed up a bit. I guess this also means for Sainz, but none of these positions resolve in any points. So it was unfortunate for Nico. His plank wear was much more severe than what Hamilton had in China, but it was still quite significant and unexpected. It was sort of starting to brew over Ted's notebook, post-race notebook, where they were talking about like, it looks like everyone's free to collect their cars in a moment, they're about to release them, and then all of a sudden we find out, actually that's not going to happen because Hülkenberg is being investigated, and then it was a slam dunk and he was disqualified. So I covered all the drama within every single element, so everything that happened in qualifying and the race. Nothing really happened in FP3 and 2. In FP1 we did have that close encounter between Brown and Albon. But now we go to the driver standings after the race. So Norris is still in the lead with 77 points, followed by Piastri, just 3 points behind him in 74, Verstappen at 69, Russell at 63, Leclerc at 32, Antonelli at 30, Hamilton 25, Albon 18, Ocon 14, Stroll 10, Gasly 6, Hülkenberg 6, Behrman 6, Tsunoda 5, Hadjar 4, Sainz 1, Alonso 0, Lawson 0, Doohan 0, and Bortoletto 0. And then the team standings, so McLaren are still on top with 151, Mercedes is at 93, Red Bull is at 71, Ferrari is at 57, Haas is at 20, Williams is at 19, Aston Martin's at 10, Racing Bulls at 7, Alpine at 6, and Kicksauber also at 6. And the only reason why Alpine are ahead of Kicksauber, although they have the same amount of points, is because their boys were able to qualify and finish the race above the Sauber boys, and as a result their position is sort of higher, even though they are on equal standing in terms of the points. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful race day where we got a little bit more excitement than we did in Japan. There were overtakings, there were crashes, there were collisions, there was side pods flying about, there were penalties, and I didn't even mention how Russell was having issues with his car. He almost lost control of his car because his brakes were going short and long. He almost lost his wheel, his DRS was playing up, and he was investigated for a penalty. It was all going on, and he still managed to put it in P2, and he didn't get a penalty in the end. Well done him. So it was a McLaren 1-3 so it was a McLaren sandwich with a Mercedes filling in the middle. And then, well, we'll see how Saudi Arabia bodes for us. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week. I will see you on Saturday. Don't forget to check out my lovely colleagues on the Be The Change Media Network. Don't forget to check out our merch store on BeTheChangeMediaNetwork.com, and have a lovely rest of the week. As I've already said, I'll see you on Saturday with another educational video, and we are getting closer to me revealing the surprise that's coming up. Bye guys.